Good evening. Tonight's message deals with a specific audience pertaining to those with a vested interest in the estate of, and I'm not sure, there are different variations. This all deals with it. All of my work is speculation, theoretical speculation based upon evidence that I derive through interpretation. It's juxtapositions of various dimensions. It all deals with different perspectives. There's something called perspectivism that Friedrich Nietzsche worked on, which is basically how you look at things from where, at what, and from various different angles of it. And then it'll make it you can look at one thing from one position and see it one way, and something from a totally different position and see it a totally different way. It all depends on a lot of different factors. And I take into account all these angles of interpretation. And so well, the problem is, what happens is a lot of my life, I was drawn down into a myopic, microscopic bubble. Therefore, I didn't really see the big picture perspective. I was lost in a cloud bank and just kind of and that's tendency that especially in New Orleans, I noticed it, and most in Baton Rouge, of course, and some of the other places. But there was a very minute perspective, and therefore it jaded or just blinded me to the realities of seeing things from different angles. And I started investigating about many years ago, actually, looking at it. I started reading. I spent a lot of time in the library and read a lot of books on different angles of different types of science and things like that. And what I've been putting together for many years now is synchronicities. Synchronicity is pattern, basically. It would be like I look at astronomy as a metaphorical context. So you can look at different things in the universe as perspective to synchronicity to pertaining to certain cases. Our case pertains to Louisiana and the different variables within Louisiana, which seem to be affected by the Mississippi River being the mouth of the Mississippi River, St. Louis Cathedral, and the state of Louisiana government within its role of the United States government. There are variations, though, because the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi River, and then also the St. Louis Cathedral is a global perspective. Tulane and Loyola are a more global perspective. LSU is seen as a very important entity in the state, but as far as the big picture perspective and what's been happening more recently is because of mismanagement, there's been a huge wedge, a canyon's opened up between Tulane and Loyola because neither of them are acting in a competent manner, and it's affecting different variations of their existence. Yeah, definitely. Well, Tulane ties into heavily into New York and different variations there. Loyola ties into Loyola Marymount, Loyola Chicago, Loyola Maryland, Jesuit, and there's all sorts of interchangeable interconnections with that. LSU is mostly involved in SEC and energy. Energy plays a whole different perspective. That really clouds everything over. And that's one of the cause and effects of what's going on. In my estimation, I was put into a coma, as was most of the members of my family, in order to be utilized. And it was kind of like that movie Overboard, where Goldie Hawn, 1987, Goldie Hawn is on a yacht, and she falls off, and she gets picked up by a guy who she has amnesia, and he uses her because he's mad at her over something like that. Well, that's a see, that's part of this perspective. There's reality to degree. There's degrees of reality in fiction. There are certain parts. It's like Pulp Fiction. There are parts of it are true, parts of it are false, pertaining to perspective, and synchronicity, and position. Or perspective deals with who's seeing what and how it's affected and that sort of thing. The yacht being, and this is something else I've discovered, in 1974, which is a very important year, numerology is huge. Numerology is a massive thing, and I would really like to see the whole big picture of it. I've just been charting what I know. Dealing with 74 is an important year. My sister and my cousin were born that year. 1974, an international body deemed St. Bartholomew's, which is a French territory in the Caribbean, St. Bart's, um, initials BLM, which happen to be mine and my father's name. BLM, but it also stands for Bureau of Land Management. My interpretation is because of St. Louis Cathedral, we had connection to international assets in Latin America and Europe, and therefore they were trying to distinguish between the international assets and the Department of the Interior Bureau of Land Management. But that's that's a big sign. That's like the big Hollywood sign. That's huge if you play it right. But we were horrifically mismanaged. Obviously, there were those who wanted to use us as pawns. They did not want us to see. They could have turned us into a global empire. That's big credibility there if you look at it. And St. Bart's is one of the most affluent areas. Why? It has Louis Vuitton, Cartier, Chanel, all these different international Burberry, things like that. It's a very exclusive luxury area. And the problem is Louisiana could have been developed like that, but it wasn't. It turned more toward the Bad News Bears. Best case scenario. It looks like the Bad News Bears won out. And I have a feeling it had to do with the Wildcatters and the Roughnecks. And we were exposed, and obviously we were known commodities. And that goes back from 1947, You Bet Your Life, with Groucho Marx, the Marx Brothers. And there were several entities. Louis Marx Toys was a huge one. Louis Marx Toys built railroads, a lot of railroads, from the 1920s all the way to, I used to have a Guns of Navarone, it was called. It was this mountain that had howitzers on it and army men. It was from Navarone, Alistair McLean, same as like John McClane from Die Hard. I know these are all crazy synchronicity, just coincidences. But there's too many. When there's too many coincidences, forms patterns. That's what I've been charting, or patterns of synchronicity. And that's what. It's not just a few coincidences. There are a ton. I've got thousands of pages of these things that I've had to, because my life has been hanging by a thread because of horrific mismanagement. It's online, and I've been boycotted and blacklisted for the most part by major media and by the people that would be able to sell my work for reasonable amounts of money. Not to mention, I need a staff because I suffer from really bad ADHD, and I've got thousands of pages of books that I really need to go through and figure out what to. I just don't. I need some feedback and editorial help and things like that. And one of these days, hopefully, I would get to a place where I could hire a competent art staff, and I probably have 10 books worth of material and 5 films that could make millions of dollars with competent people helping. So what goes back to, Guns of Navarone I had as a child, Louis Marx Toys, but I don't have it anymore. That's where we get into the whole voodoo thing. All my toys, the toy was a movie filmed in Baton Rouge at Gotchaw's, and which Leon Gotchaw's was a sugar empire baron from St. John the Baptist Parish, where, if I'm not mistaken, our grandmother and aunt were born. Garyville, there's actually a Marathon oil refinery, and I live a block away from this gorgeous St. John the Baptist Cathedral in Savannah, right next to St. Vincent's. There's all sorts of these strange, but then there's also these subsidiary ancillaries that I question, like Marathon Music in Nashville, Marathon Music in Los Angeles, and I think they're feeding into energy while we're chump slaves. So, there's one thing about religion. There's even another thing about energy, but there's a ton of people piled on while we're still held. I mean, we're not getting a cent. We are literally Zeus slaves, theoretically speaking. And I'm trying to prove this. what I'm trying to do, and I have been for a long time now, is prove this. These are all complex theorems. Synchronicity, perspective, and different things like that. I wouldn't call it math. I would call it more logic-based. Logic and physics, string theory to a degree, quantum mechanics, Newtonian reactionary physics, and things like that. Well, what's happened was genetically I was hacked at LSU to where my body was my power was shrunk. They tried to shrink me down. They were trying to bury me. I got screwed by Baton Rouge. And I admit I was a tad of a rebellious youth. I was set up to be a lot worse than I ever was. But it was mostly the ADHD sort of thing and stuff like that. And I mean, I was on a really short leash. That's a whole different story. I'm going to skip forward to this. But what I think has happened is the family has been stuck. We've been divided and conquered, put in different parts, and we don't have competent perspective. We don't have competent management. We're forced to live in our existence bubbles. And I'm trying to build an estate. What we need to do is build an estate with walls where we are protected from outdoor. We're living in the wilderness right now. We are literally living in the woods, and I have been massacred. I mean, I was on a real cheap. I'm forced to do these cheap, terrible jobs, and I was literally hacked to death, massacred. Where I have no energy, I get nothing. I've been hollowed out to where I've been riddled with parasites. And I've tried parasite remedies. I've actually ordered some, and I don't know. I mean, but the problem is it goes through LSU, but the problem is we were lowered. I was lowered so far down the rank, even though it's like I provide a ton, but I was lowered way, way down to where I don't get any of my own birthright or protection like that in theoretical estimation, of course. And so. And I'm trying to remedy the situation, but I don't have the resources or tools to protect myself. I could fix it. It's not real difficult, but I can't necessarily do it. It's connected into some big things up in the. It's connected into. I mean, it's connected all over. Energy seems to be playing a part, whereas we're almost as if I don't know. It's really I'd like some perspective on this from some scientists or from theoreticians, but I can't really put together any sort of thing. It was kind of like the movie Armageddon, where they had a big asteroid coming to Earth, but instead we were like the planet Mars. We were a planet. So what happened was they decided they wanted to get rid of Mars and let the asteroid hit, and all the mutants go crazy. So the mutants went crazy because the asteroid hit. The Walking Dead, the George Romero sort of thing. While we were more of the planetary Mars. We were supposed to build, in my theoretical estimation, we're a bank, basically. We have a lot of global international assets. So we are a bank. So what did they decide to do? They're trying to hide it as energy, but basically they blew up the planet and then started selling off all the parts. It was a chop shop fire sale. We got hot wired, hijacked, crashed, and this happened before 9/11. We were originally hijacked way back when, and we got hacked. I mean, we were obviously a known commodity. Like I said, Louis Mark's Toys. They filmed that movie, The Toy, with Richard Pryor. And I mean, we were a known commodity. There's a lot of the Bad News Bears. I mean, all sorts of things. We were a known commodity, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of other, and believe me, in nature, animals smell and sense and hear everything. And in a world that is based upon real thin credibility, we're like a huge trophy. So we are real credible. And so they used us, and they're trying to say that we got hollowed out and sold for parts. But the problem is they mismanage assets. We're talking about the reason that Italy is screwed up right now, and the reason that Spain and Greece are screwed up deal with Louisiana, in my theoretical estimation, because there's no accounting. What we banking or the law really is an accounting balance, a debit and a credit. You know, the Bears and the Bulls. Well, the Bulls have taken over the Bear Bank. We happen to be the Bear Bank. Louisiana is different. That's why there are parishes. It's supposed to be different, but instead, the mob invaded and took it over. They took over the bank and started giving out all the loot as Mardi Gras, and they're trying to call it energy. And then they just giving away money left and right. And the accounting is really suspect. That's the problem. It's suspect accounting, and therefore it's affecting qualitative driven states like Italy and Spain. And I'm trying to save a little banking credibility by pointing out the fact that say, hey, something's really fishy here, and I would like to investigate, even though I'm not allowed to. So therefore, so what it's like in Louisiana, we happen to be like I said, it's a different sort of perspective. It's like, well, the Guns of Navarone thing's real similar to Crown Mountain and Aspen Mountain. The Crown family makes was a big owner of General Dynamics. Now they own Aspen Mountain. I know that's, but it goes back to that whole voodoo perspective. That my entire life has been pillaged, where I have nothing left of my life, and therefore it's used against me. Therefore, the power of the possessions are deemed more important than the person itself. And that goes back into the genetic hacking. And I say this for a warning, because the reason we are left out in the cold, left out in the wilderness, is so the others can be trapped. They are swamp people. They are trying to trap us so they can keep us as zoo hostages, as far as we are big voodoo credibility or big magic, you know, that sort of thing. And it's way beyond freedom of religion. I mean, this has gone beyond. There's so many angles being exploited and played here. As far as, like I said, we were like that Armageddon, but they blew up the planet Mars. We got hijacked, and we're paid for everything. We get screwed for everything. We're a beautician reverence, you know, everything and any kind of exploitation possible. We're used mostly as keys and diamond drill bits, in my estimation. And it's like if you take, it's like a periodic table. You've got a lot. We happen to be very volatile chemical. We would be like uranium or some, not even that, plutonium or something like that, theoretically. And so what they've done is, and within LSU, is they've combined it all into this one molten, refined pot, and they're remaking. But we get stuck, I got stuck at least at the bottom. See, the problem is, one good thing about me being so low is if I would have gotten to the middle, I would have probably noticed. I've been noticing all along since high school. There were some strange things I was noticing, but I had ADHD real bad, so things just kind of don't stick, and I didn't put a lot together. But since the one thing is, if I would have gotten, I had basically, by having nothing to lose, it makes me keep investigating and investigating, that sort of mentality. Problem is there's so many, it's gotten, we are so far past due. I mean, like, Overboard was 1987, and we should have gotten out of the woods back then. I mean, if we got into trouble, we should have gone out, we should have left the country as a family, to be honest with you. But the problem is people were spending on our estate. They were using us as credit cards. It was like, they throw us in we pay a ton at LSU. Worst investment ever. LSU, worst investment. Tulane, worst investment. Loyola, terrible investment. The whole bit, terrible. I mean, we get nothing back. I mean, they literally keep us like zoo slaves, and we are paying a ton, or we're used in their key diamond drill bits, as you would, to access, or they build these mutants, in my theoretical estimation, with exoskeletons. That's where the accounting comes into suspect questionability, is because it's like these exoskeleton sort of creatures, mutants, that don't necessarily have the inherent value to be derived. Whereas when you start, so then now it's changing the accounting principles globally in the appraisal valuation sentimentality sentiment. So, yeah, we were getting screwed from every side. I never had anybody help. Nobody, I mean, I never once had, obviously, we should have, made some, I mean, we need to be independent of the system. my aunts should not be working for the state. I mean, that's terrible precedence, because what's going on is it's the golden rule perspective. It's like if we use state facilities, then everybody. It's like if one person uses it, then that's a million over or 10 million over here using the same sort of. It's one. That's the exponent there. One. That's algebra or something. It's the same perspective. It's like that open door. That's the walls we need to build. We needed to be independent. We should not be using certain facilities or certain. We should go to private schools. We should have gone to Tulane, first of all. We shouldn't have gone to LSU. That's bad investment. Regardless of how fun it is, but still, I mean, that's the state university. Baton Rouge is the Baton Rouge was trying to control the state. There's different factions. There's all sorts of different factions within Baton Rouge itself. But they are on the hook right now because they mismanaged it from the first part. First of all, they made it, we should have been, like I said, figured out a way somehow. We had no help at all. I didn't, at least. I figured this out all on my own. I never once had anyone try to tell me anything. It's a bunch of worthless pointers. Showing these seeing these things. But we really need a strategic council, an estate planning strategic council with lawyers and facts and accountants to figure this out. Hardcore facts. But this laser pointer shining lights in the sky that I'm having to dissect is just a waste. And time is money, because the people around us, when somebody is guilty, and people have basically lifted our wallet and forged a bunch of credit cards using us as validator for them, the delegators, as I call them, delegator validators. Then, when you're guilty or you're known commodity, and then you start getting real apprehensive, and that's why they start getting bigger. If you notice, the people that are guilty start getting bigger and bigger and bigger as protection for themselves. And another reason is the people that have screwed me over were actually in control of me, steering me around, because I was on such a short leash. I really had no control. I was getting screwed left and right, and nothing I could do about it. I was trying. Fell down in a hole. I started doing some independent study research on several different subversive culture factions, and I've got a lot of research. I should have a PhD or 2 PhDs out of the work that I have, and the effect upon economic and political policy, which is exactly I can identify what's going on in today's society, because that's what I studied. What's going on today is exactly what I studied a long time ago in the subversive culture and how it affected by studying the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s and what is going on today. The effect of a society it's the mob being the herd. There's no balance, and that's the problem. So, we were screwed, so people around us are trying to keep us. They don't want me to succeed. Certain factions, that's where you get into Blue Cross Blue Shield, Justin Ford Kimball, Waco, Texas. It was a Baptist, and they now just got the contract for the state of Louisiana. So, healthy for guilty makes the victim sicker. We are high-value victims, therefore, but if anybody screwed me over, if there's leverage to be had, healthcare is actually used to keep us down. It's negative reinforcement, if that makes any sense. So it's like, that's the black hole mentality that we have. It's a negative energy field because we are providing power. We are they are reliant upon us. And therefore, those that are to be healthy, and insurance, my father should not be in the industry. Insurance is about communal pooled assets. Bad precedent. And this goes back, there's a lot of precedences are manipulated. Misinterpretation and manipulated of precedences pertaining to especially pooled communal assets. When we provide, it's like I said, it goes back to like LSU. Well, we're paying billions of dollars here for $1,000 education, and then we're not even, and we're getting the shaft at that. You know what I mean? And so most people are paying $1,000. We're paying $1 billion to go to LSU, literally. And I didn't even graduate from there. I graduated from Southeastern. And then therefore, even though I pay billions of dollars for the LSU, I have a theory that LM Les Miles is LM Louis Marks estate. My theoretical estimation. Liberty Mutual also potentially. The grandfather was very big in the Northeast. We have a lot of money in banks or assets because of St. Louis Cathedral. We were a banking family, which a bank is assets, and we have assets. They're not necessarily actualized tangible. We had to convert them. I've been trying to get in and convert. I even created my own. It's not like I'm going to. I have a ton of work. I could have made a few $1,000,000 relatively easy off my art credibility, but I was locked out because it's that Mr. Waterboy. What liquid assets, Waterboy of South Central Louisiana State University, Adam Sandler. Mr. Deeds, which Mr. Deeds is like Marx Capital is a famous book. Capital being an asset, tangible asset. Deeds being a capital asset. And so what they tried to do, though, was to subvert us around. They would they basically sold shares in us where we were slaves, basically. So they were draining off any sort of assets and selling them to people who might be able to utilize them better. And you can say it to a degree, but I mean, come on, it's gotten way. Literally, if we got 1% of 1%, should have at least a few $100 million, theoretically speaking. But we're getting screwed, royally screwed, Middleton royally screwed. You know what I mean? And all we have to do is stand up and do something about it, but we are not allowed. Media boycott, totally. The banks, the New York banks have locked us out, basically. Locked me out from, all I need is an exchange. That's what I was trying to do. Sell some work. Make like $100,000 from selling work in order to hire a competent team. But I have a feeling, since they know what I have now, because my case was I've been hanging upside down out of building, threatened to drop, and we've been horrifically screwed by mismanagement there because, we should have done this. If we would have it's one of the worst strategy moves in history, but we are in the right, so therefore they're forced to get big, and the world, that's where we're getting into a lot of the global economic problems, because this taps into a lot of European and South America. What the prize right now is they want Central and Latin America, and they're trying to get at it through us. We're a drill bit to get into it. They want to chop that up because that's big value, because they print a ton of cash, and they need a value to their cash, and we back the cash. That's what we do. We are a bank. We're the bank validator. That's what we do. All this tons and tons of cash, whether it be entertainment idols at William Morris Endeavor Agency, or oil, or if it's energy. There's all sorts of different things. Pharmaceuticals, but when they produce a ton of cash, there's got to be backing value to. They're looking to international assets to back it because they printed so much cash now that they need a backing for it, and that's what we're used for. St. Louis, King of France, #9 Cathedral. And they're using that ties into St. Louis, the king of beer. It goes back into Spuds McKenzie. Look, YouTube, I've been charting. There's a lot of interesting things. We were screwed because we were exposed and we were spotlighted as being a very VIP valuable family, known commodity. And they were pointing this out. And so people who were utilizing our influence decided, well, we got to capture them, so that's why we got captured. And I'm trying to build a way out of it, but we're not allowed. We should have had this meeting in a strategic, this is a joke. We should have had an estate planning meeting where everybody puts what they know or what all this evidence, and put this together and formulate something. Makes no sense. This is one of the worst strategy things ever, but hey, all this information's already known commodity. Yeah, so like Diversion tactics is a big thing. Like I said, we are high value assets theoretically based upon blood, true blood chunks, I would say, and we provide power to these diplomas or to credit cards or to certain things, but they're not necessarily, they're scared of letting us go, in my estimation. And so therefore we are sabotaged and held in check. And like I would have built a global trade empire starting years ago. I would have married family members to family in Europe, Asia, South America in order to, and I would have turned Louisiana into a global empire. But instead, our pimp handlers, see, Baton Rouge wants to control the state. Baton Rouge didn't want us, I mean, basically, they didn't care. I mean, they're going to be the runts. Louisiana is the runt of the SEC now. Texas got huge. Texas got monstrous. I mean, they know how to, use my mother and my sister. Now they got Georgia in on it. Louisiana are dumb chumps, to be honest. That's what it looks like. And now that Louisiana lost all, I mean, they're going to be the Yankees' little lapdogs. And even with the S.I. Newhouse, which is a New York family, when the Times Picayune, they're trying to say, you need wake up, do something here, but they want to stay small. I guess they're addicted to crawfish or something. They want to stay crawfish because Italy, I mean, their European muscle that Louisiana used to flex, now it's flabby. They don't have much going on over there. They really screwed up bad. Louisiana really screwed up bad, and it was a bunch of sacred cows. I mean, honestly, they were afraid. They didn't want to eat any meat. They wanted to starve us. I get screwed by anything, and it's part of that. They get your street cred by screwing, that sort of mentality. That's the whole hacking thing, where it's that's a whole method of credibility generation sort of thing. But it's really when it's lost all its steam. So now Louisiana, it's got to have a lot of money from oil, but Shaw was its big Fortune 500, and then there's Energy, owns a bunch of nuclear power plants all over the country, but Shaw just got bought by Chicago Bridge, which is based in the Woodlands. So, I mean, the problem is it's just been horrifically misrun. I mean, it's like our gang Little Rascals running the show over there. It's a bunch of these local fucking punk kids, in my estimation. It's a bunch of local punk gang. I honestly think it's a bunch of little league, local Baton Rouge punk kids that want to run the state. And so they're trying to hustle LSU, and they got caught because now there's some big great white sharks circling, and they really can't do anything. So now all the big fish, what the money that Louisiana has, is going to jump ship. They're going to go to Texas. They're going to go to New York. They're going to go to Georgia. They're going to go to Colorado. They're going to go to California because it's going to be, there's no law. Louisiana basically turned everybody, their law into a bunch of gummy bears. They wanted some gumbo gummy bears or something, so they shrunk us down to where I can't do anything. And there's really no one else that stood up in the state. They're playing political games, but they don't have any power there. Louisiana really is the runt of the SEC. I mean, and the NCAA is trying to point some out. When they play in the Chick-fil-A against the Clemson Tigers, that's a mirror image of what they look like. South Carolina, and that's pretty piss poor pathetic when you got the Mississippi River and more oil. I mean, they've got so much oil, and they did nothing with it. I mean, there's got to be a lot of individual wealth, but like I said, they're going to jump ship. I mean, they built nothing in that time. I mean, it's horrifically mismanaged just because they want to. I don't understand. A bunch of playboy hunters, worst generation, the parents' generation. They did nothing. Playboy hunters did nothing. And so now the kids are going to suffer because I'm basically a slave, can't do anything here. I don't have, literally can't do anything because I'm a kidnapped slave for the most part. I mean, Savannah isn't helping at all because they're now, they're going to, it's just some of the worst strategy ever. I mean, you gotta literally, I've been stalked by different mob factions. I'm a known commodity, high value VIP since Groucho Marx. And so they use me, and basically I've been kept on a very, very short leash, and everybody else just ignores it. Say, oh, you're crazy. But I mean, come on. The animals smell and hear everything, and they learn how to use it, and that's what happened. And it's gonna same thing's gonna happen to all the rest of the family. They'll build little. You might have a little bit nicer cages, but for the most part, you're gonna be squirrels and rabbits. You know, that's what it's gonna be. There was a Georgia lottery commercial last year where they caught a hunter and there were a bunch of animals sitting on a pile of a big pile of cash in the middle of the woods. So there was these squirrel and rabbits and all these things sitting there laughing on this big pile of cash. So they had caught a hunter. But the problem is that's basically what we were. We had a big bank of cash that people learned how to use because we never built a house. We were playboys and hunters. Never built any competent walls. And we are giants, regardless of what your shrunken little Smurf mentality, gummy bear thought is. We are giants. It takes a lot, like, I am a giant. It takes a lot of money to move. I can't even move my body. I suffer from malnutrition, atrophy, from parasite overload. I have so many parasites in my body that I get nothing. My muscles, I have atrophy from so many parasites. And from everything I eat, I get no benefit. I'm in a sensory depraved bubble. I get nothing. Everything is sold by my pimps, as you would say, for I mean, literally, this is metaphorically, but there's truth to it. Drilled into my brain for dopamine that is sold as drugs. You know, my bones are sold as osteoporosis. You know, it's transference of body and power. And this is not religion. That's bull. Yeah, that is a crock. This is not religion. This is, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on here that are just way beyond any comprehension of. And this is, like I said, fiction, nonfiction. Take it as you will. It's factual. I mean, this is one of the. It's a joke. I mean, theoretically, I've built enough evidence here that I should. Worst case scenario should be able to make a few $1,000,000 off of it, and I can't get anything done. I mean, it is literally pathetic the state of affairs that this estate has been driven into by mismanagement. And people, I mean, it's horrific. I mean, regardless of what it's one of the worst. You can't even imagine how bad. I mean, this is going to be a comedy piece for our kidnappers who use our. I mean, and for the most part, like I said, we're used for the VIP keys. You know, we unlock the Louis Roederer Cristal, or we unlock the really good VIP penthouse suites in Italy. You know, we can hotwire. I can hotwire a Lamborghini. They can cut my finger off and hotwire a Lamborghini like that. You know, print a ton of cash. You know, that's what we're used for. Hot wiring and opening doors and things like that. But we get nothing from it. We are literally getting the worst you can ever imagine. And now, by waiting, it gets worse and worse. And now, with the horrific deficit, the system itself is threatened because there's nobody really running the show. I mean, it is absolutely the absolute worst you can imagine. And my life, well, they were trying to dilute my influence. I mean, I have literally wasted 10, 15, 20 years. Nothing gone on. I mean, literally just terrible, terrible treatment. I mean, well, there was attempts by certain mob factions to murder me by suicide. So it was extreme, but I didn't die. And so now I'm still alive. So I'm a nightmare to some people, but hey, like I said, eat some meat and cut. You got to pay your bills. The problem is nobody wants to sacrifice anything. What they're doing is they're using our assets to pay their bills. They are all so important because they're addicted to our. It's like they drained our blood. They use our blood, but they drain. It's like when you see in a vampire movie. If you drink too much blood, you'll kill. That's what happened. They just drain me to where I'm just a shell. And I'm not even that. They even sold parts in the shell to where I can't, it's not even that. And so the they've gotten so high on the blood that they think, so now they are eating Italian steaks, they're eating Spanish steaks, they're eating, really good expensive meat. That's where the bank, I mean, so the law, the bankers, would have been able, that's what they are going through us, our St. Louis Cathedral, King of France bank, to eat all of these French, Italian, English, Russian, and that's why the economy is going, so bad, is because they're instead of it's overrun with sacred livestock in the USA because they're addicted to this. It's really like cute super steroid mutant juice that they're addicted to, these chemical cocktails, these genetic modified creatures, through the education system, through the exoskeletons, the representational nature, helmets, pads, jerseys, all in the representational nature. Everybody's got a helmet on, that sort of mentality, and the effect of quantum mechanics, reactionary physics globally, and what it affects based upon our bank, theoretically. So that's what's going on. They're eating our steaks while these sacred cows, they're trying to validate their existence for a transference of the genetic power. That's why it must destroy. I mean, it's bad business, though. I mean, they should have built a bridge to Europe, but they were too proud. I think they got hooked on. It's like steroids. It's really a really bad steroid in drug addiction, and that's my metaphorical interpretation of what's going on. It's really, they're juicing, heavy juicing, based upon blood. They're sharing blood doping and that sort of thing. It's communal genetic modified blood doping based upon molten pot, the universities and different things like that, and the political system, and the lawyers are all the grinding the gears, that sort of mentality. So I'm just trying to be a little accountability here and to figure some things out. And like I said, hey, if it's fiction, that's a great book. I got like 50 hours of videotape and thousands and thousands of pages that I could put together. But I need a staff. I'll be honest with you. I am a thought person. I'm a good manager, but I cannot. I need a staff. I can't do anything. That was a Will Arnett commercial where he's standing in front of a tiger striped Lamborghini, and about needing us handlers and things like that by AT&T and Nokia. And it's honest truth. I mean, that's from that sign right up there that I hung in the window. I've been trying to get interns, can't get anything. I don't know what's going on over here. I think George is going to try to play Aaron. They're going to try to build up. They're going to play through her. They're pitted up. Louis Marks Toys had something called Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and I remember, I think I had them at one time. And there's commercials on the YouTube, and you're fighting each other. Well, what they did was they took us, who should have been the principals, and they made us fight each other because we're so manipulative, because we're so small, shrunk down, and easily to control. And I've been pointing this out, but nobody seems to do anything about it, So, I mean, I'm like, fix the problem, close the door. I mean, build a roof. I mean, get out of the woods. I mean, it's bad weather. The funny part is, and I mean, there's so many people that know my plight, and nobody's done anything about it. I mean, literally, a lot of people know about my plight. And I'm an investigative journalist on some things, intelligence on some things. I could turn evidence on a lot of different levels pertaining to, it's just, I don't know what's real and what's not, but I'm not saying, I'm trying, my objective is I would like to figure out what is real and what is not. I would like to hire a staff or hire a team and try to understand what's real, what's not, because some of it has to be real, some of it's theory, some of it's, it's like proof and theorems, that sort of mentality, but I can't do it. And so I just keep spiraling off on these different descents. Most people stuck in their myopic lives, their microscopic lives, don't think in this perspective. I think from a very macro perspective based upon an estate managerial sort of plan sort of thing. But the problem is Louisiana's been taken over by politicians strictly, and they're being, there's for the most. I don't understand it. I mean, there's got to be a ton. I mean, Louisiana really screwed up in my estimation. I mean, with the evidence that I've put forth, they should have sent something over here. I mean, gotten me out of this place. I mean, George. See now, the more time that goes, the stronger it gets. The more guilty. Now George is on the hook for keeping me here for wasting all this prime time, Deion Sanders. And I mean, it's just one of the. I mean, burned bridges. Daredevils. That's what they wanted. They want evil Knievel daredevils. They they thought that it's like deadlifting, or it's stupid though in my estimation. I mean, it's bad politics. Especially when you look at the state of the global economy, it's horrific. I mean, absolutely horrific. The global economy could fall off a cliff real easy if they ever decide to pay their bills, but they're not. They're just going to keep printing more cash, and they're valuing it upon, in my estimation, well, they wanted to get at Latin America. That's what they're going at. Latin America is a big chunk of real estate, and they had to chop off the head, and nobody raised up to do it. So, I mean, nothing I can do. So, that's my story as I see it. So, not really sure in what perspective, but you can get from it what you like and figure out whatever you might be able to. And like I said, I was trying to have a meeting, an estate plan, figure something out. I mean, to carve off some pieces and figure a way to make money from all the assets and the resources that people we have within our immediate group. I mean, we have to know enough people in there to be able to build some sort of company. I mean, trade something, some international trade. I mean, I've worked with people from over 100 countries. I mean, I was trying to build a trade empire for years with Veracruz, Mexico. I was trying to build one with Rio de Janeiro. I've got friends in Sao Paulo, and I was, also all over Europe. I was trying to build Marseille, and I was trying to build one with Marseille, but I can't get anything done because other people are using our keys, in my estimation. So, nothing I can do about it except sit here and bitch and try to figure something out. Hopefully, somebody will wake up from this coma. That's what it is. We're a blood bank coma. We're all in comas in our little bodies, and they sell our bodies for parts. And so hopefully somebody will wake up for something.